So I got rid of it yesterday.
Oh my goodness. Nancy, you're on here twice. We have double Nancy tonight. Okay, well, let's get started. Notice I had a few conversations this week. One thing is when we break music down into these little integral parts, it almost starts to seem too easy, doesn't it? It's like, well, hold on, I can certainly read those. I can certainly read those pitches, and I can certainly understand everything that's happening in terms of pitch now. Well, certainly that I'm not really understanding, because if I was, it would be harder. No, if you're reading one musical element at a time, it is pretty simple, right? It's like kids who cannot read novels could certainly sit down with Tolstoy and name letters, right? They're not able to read Tolstoy or comprehend Tolstoy, but they can go through each word and give you each a letter. It's okay to be at that level. So when we're talking about pitch, you know, that solfege practice that I sent you was probably just so stinking easy, you're not sure if you were doing it right, and I guarantee you were. Let's take a look at that here. There we go. If you can see our solfege practice sheet, nod your head, please. Perfect. So each bar starts on do, and your do can be anything you choose. So if I'm going to sing you line A, it goes a little like this. Do, re, mi, do, re, do, do, ti, do. So on line A, do is clearly the bottom line. We can all recognize that, right? If you look at letter B, do, re, mi, do, re, do, do, ti, do. Give me a thumbs up if the line of letter B and the line of letter A are both the same music. Yeah, it's totally the same music. It's just that in letter B, it's notated with do being the second space there. Line C is a little different. Let's take a look at line C. Do, re, mi, fa, do, re, mi, re, do, re, do, ti. Letter D. Do, re, mi, fa, do, re, mi, re, do, re, do, ti. Same music, do we agree? Just notated with do on a different line or space. In practical terms for music, you know, this is the do being on different lines or spaces is kind of like music being in different keys. So if we put a treble clef here at the beginning of C and D, this would be F major and this would be G major, but it's still, no matter what key we're in, do, re, mi, fa, do, re, mi, re, do, ti. Now if I go over to the piano and actually gave you an F, F, do, re, mi, fa, do, re, mi, re, do, ti. We change what note do is in order to sing together, but it doesn't mean that do, re, mi, fa is any different. Just changes the key. Does everyone understand? This was probably really easy. Did we all try this? If you thought it was easy, nod your head. Yeah. So if you're able to read through these without any problem, then you're reading music. You are. And you're actually already reading rhythm, because I didn't put stems and flags on anything, but certainly this note means it's a little longer than these notes, right? Because it's open. So you're already reading rhythm, kind of, and you're reading pitch. We just complicate things in order to be very specific about what pitches we're singing when we put clefs here and key signatures. But do, re, mi, fa is always do, re, mi, fa, no matter what key you're in, so long as it says do, re, mi, fa. But there's no need to overcomplicate that. So that's a review of our pitch notation that we went over last time. I sent you a notation worksheet where you write the names of the pitches in there. And by the way, there's no need for you to submit any There's no need for you to submit the worksheets to me or anything. Those are just for your edification and for your practice. You don't even need to do them if you don't feel the need, but if you'd like some practice, I think they can be a help. And they also help you ascertain if you're understanding certain concepts. So the fact that all of you read that solfege practice without any issue means that you do understand that concept. So you're golden. So this week we're talking about written meter and time. In terms first of proto-notation. Now don't let this word make you nervous. This is going to be really simple when I show you actually how we do that. Proto-notation is a system of musical notation stripped of complicating elements and focusing only on basic elements of meter, rhythm, and scale degree. This system is drawn from Gary Karpinski's Manual for Ear Training and Sight Singing. Following is an example melody in both standard notation and proto-notation. So here you can see, here's the standard notation for this melody. I'll sing it for you. So, do, so, fa, mi, do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. And this is Karpinski's idea of proto-notation. This is actually really complicated. I'm going to show you a more accessible one. Here we go. You should be able to see a whiteboard now. Can you see a whiteboard? Like, can you see me writing hello? Oh, okay, hold on 1 second. Now you should see me. Here we go.
Did you start recording?
I
see it. It's you said we did.
Oh, you scared me. Oh my God, we'd have to start this all over again, folks.
No, you're good. I'm sorry.
Hold on. Now, where did the whiteboard go? Oh my goodness.
We see it now.
Yeah, but I lost it.
Oh.
Here we go. Here's the whiteboard. Where are you at, whiteboard? Oh, there it is. Now you can see how I wrote hello there, yes. Eraser. Oh. It's not erasing. There we go. If you can see my whiteboard, nod your head. Here we go. So when I talk about proto-notation, I'm talking about this. This is how I used to do dictation in high school music theory. So I was a wizard at dictation, and everyone thought it was because I was some kind of genius, but it absolutely wasn't. It was because this is how I did it. So you would have musical stabs written here across the page. But what I would do is when everyone was scribbling and trying to write the music the first time through the listening, this is what I did. So if the teacher said, ta, ta-di, ta, ta, I would go ta, ta-di, ta, ta. Telling me, oh, there's one beat, and then there's a beat with a subdivision, and da-da-da. And then I'd go back and I'd say ta, ta-di, ta, ta. Obviously, this is in 4/4, right?
We just see hello, by the way.
All right.
Anything else?
You can still just see hello?
Yep.
Yeah.
See hello.
You can still see hello. Okay, hold on. Well, this isn't working. Share screen, again, whiteboard.
Ah,
There you go.
Ah, there it is.
You see something written there, though?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go.
Your notes, yep.
There we go. Now you can see notes written here. Okay, yeah, so this is in 4/4 time. So I'll do that again for you. So if she said ta, ta-di, ta-di, ta, right above the step, I'll go ta, ta-di, ta-di, ta, so that I can see how many divisions of the beat there are. And then I would go back in and write, quarter note, 2/8, 2/8, and a quarter note in the staff. But see, in the first listening to a listening example, you can write these little dashes, and you could even do it this way, ta, ta-di, ta, ta. However way you want to write it, you can write what you hear so that you can go back and spend the time to write this notation.
We're not seeing your notation. We're
No.
Your screen is not.
Huh. Oh, well. I bet you'll see it now if I share it. Watch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Huh, weird.
Oh, I see.
See how I'm writing little dashes for each beat?
Mm-hmm.
Here, maybe I can help you this way. I'm going to share the document again. Here's what we'll do. Can you see the document now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll type it. How weird.
Mm.
If you go ta, ta, dee, ta, ta. See how you can see that there's two little beats here together and then they're separated? Or you could go ta, ta, dee, ta, ta. See this here? This would be so much easier if I had a whiteboard for real. Anyway, that's proto-notation. It's making little primitive marks on your score or on your paper so that you can then go back and write the actual notation in. You can use solfege. I would just use the first letter. I've done that before. When I think of a melody or something, I will go and I'll write a series of letters. Like so, do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do. And that way when I get home, I can remind myself of what exactly I wanted to write down. Now that doesn't help you when you write rhythm, but it just helps you remember little things. Or in your music, if you were learning this melody, this looks like it could be Schubert or something, you know. You can write little dashes and little things above to remind you that there's two beats in this half note and one beat here in this quarter note and two half beats in these eighth notes, etc. But proto-notation is a fancy word for basically writing little easy symbols on the page for you to remember how things go or to remember what to write down later. Time signatures. So when we talk about meter, time signature is another word for meter. Meter and metrics is just the measuring of time. So time signatures, the time signature is a notational convention used in Western musical notation to specify how many beats are contained in each measure or bar and which note value is equivalent to a beat. The top number in a time signature indicates the number of beats in a measure, and the bottom number indicates what note duration gets counted as one beat. Read the time signature like a fraction to extrapolate this information. For example, the time signature of 4/4 is a measure with 4 beats, the quarter note getting the beat. So 4 quarters. If you wanted to know what was in each measure, 4 quarter notes are in each measure, quarter note getting the beat, or 2 half notes in a measure with the half note getting the beat. Rhythmic values refers to the combination of long and short durations in time. So again, we took a bar, which is a measure of time, and we broke it into beats, okay, of each measure. And now rhythms either combine these beats or break these beats into further parts so that we can to incorporate the musical information that we're going to perform. Durations are notated with either unfilled or filled note heads. That's this part here on the note. Can you see my mouse? That's part right here. This is the note head. They can appear with or without a stem. Filled note heads always appear with a stem. Flags can be added to the stems of filled note heads, and each flag shortens the duration by half. It's really just like this. It's this little hierarchy of time here. There's 4 quarter notes in a whole note. Whole note is split in half into 2 half notes. Half notes are halved into quarter notes, into eighth notes, into 16th notes, into 32nd notes. In choral music, we seldom see 32nd notes. I've hardly ever seen 32nd notes in choral music, but we do see 16th notes in Messiah. Frequently see half and quarter and eighth notes, yeah? Then there's the corresponding rests. This right here, these whole and half rests, these days they're not so much written as a hat as they are just a dash. And so really the discrimination between the upside down top hat and the right side up top hat is kind of not a thing anymore. It's just a little dash in there. But the quarter notes, you know, they're little Z's with a little C on the bottom, and then I write little 7s. I don't do with these little dots. You don't have to write perfectly to write. Just write it so anyone can understand. Dots and ties allow for basic durations to be lengthened. I don't like the term lengthened as much as I like to think of it as time being added. to a duration. A dot occurs after a pitch or a rest, and it increases its duration by half. For example, if a quarter note is equivalent in duration to 2/8 notes, a dotted quarter note would be equivalent to 3/8 notes. So there's 2/8 notes in a quarter note. That's just math, right? Basic math. If you're adding half of that, you add an eighth note. So there's the time of 3/8 notes in a dotted quarter note. Generally, undotted notes divide into 2 notes, dotted notes divide into 3. Thus, undotted notes are typically used to represent the beat level in simple meter, while dotted notes are used to represent the beat in compound meter. Simple meter is when the beats are divided into 2. So ta-dee, 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 ta, like 4/4. Compound meter is like 6/8 when it's divided into 3. Ta-kee-da, 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 ta. So very simplistically, if you want to remember this in a way, simple meter is like a march, and compound meter is like a waltz. So if you can waltz along to it, you know it's in some kind of compound meter. If you could march along to it, you know it's in some kind of simple meter. So here we see an example of these little math equations written here where a dotted half note is equal to a half note plus a quarter note. A dotted quarter note is equal to a quarter note plus an eighth note. This double dotted thing kind of here, you don't see it very often, and I wouldn't think about it too hard because it gets really, it's actually pretty annoying. And in a lot of contemporary publications of even older music, I'm seeing a lot of these things taken out and a lot of things written out with ties because people cannot read this. It's sort of a shorthand. And, you know, when Handel was there to tell people what he meant, it was a little easier, but he ain't here now. And so, you know, we need to be able to figure this out on our own. We're just poor mortals after all. A tie lengthens a duration by connecting 2 adjacent identical pitches. Ties are used to either sustain a pitch beyond the length of a single measure or to make a particular rhythmic grouping in a measure more clear. In the example below, the duration of the first pitch is longer than a single measure, so it is represented by tying the dotted half note, which lasts the full measure, into the first beat of the subsequent measure. So if each measure in this music has 3 beats per measure, and I need a note that lasts 4 beats, but I wrote a whole note here, you would not be able to see where the end of that note is. And in fact, that's how they wrote music down in the Renaissance. Each part would just have, you know, if it lasted 4 beats, they'd write a whole note and you'd count and then you'd figure it out because that's just how it was. But these days, if I put a whole note there, you would sing 4 beats, but then you'd get into this measure and you wouldn't know what beat you're on. So instead of writing a whole note here, which is 4 beats in 3/4, write a dotted half note and tie it to this note so that you know it's ta, 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 ta-dee, ta, ta. That way you can just add it together. I teach my little high schooler singers to sort of press into that first beat, to sort of crescendo into these ties. And that's exactly what we do in music most of the time, right? Is sort of press into these things so that we can really count and be deliberate about how long these notes are. Beams. It's important to remember that notation is intended to be read by performers. Duh, right? Composers frequently forget this. You should always strive to make your notation as easy to interpret as possible. Part of this includes grouping the rhythms such as that they convey the beat unit and the beat division. Beams are used to group any notes at the beat division level or shorter that fall within the same beat. This is complicated language for saying if there's 2/8 notes per beat, we need to beam these things together so that I can see where the beats are, right? This right here, even for me, and a lot of vocal music, old vocal music, if you're singing different syllables on each of these notes, they would break the beams here like that, and I cannot read it. I can't sight read it. But if it's like this, I can read it because I can see exactly where every beat is, and if you fall off somewhere, you can jump on a beat. But here, where is the beat? Can't tell. Which one would you prefer? First one or the second one? Second one, yeah, very easy. Typically, a meter is defined by the presence of a consistent beat division. For instance, in 3/4, beat divisions are, it's a simple meter, okay? So each note is divided by 2. But sometimes we want to divide a note into 3. And we'll use a triplet division of the beat in simple meter or a duple division of the beat in compound meter. Triplets are borrowed from the compound meter and may occur at both the beat division and subdivision levels as seen below. So here in 3/4, usually quarter notes are divided into 2 eighth notes, kind of like beat 1 and beat 3 of this measure. But the composer has seen fit to put a triplet in here. So usually it would say ta, ta, di, ta, di. Instead now it says ta, taki, da, ta, di. 1 triplet 3 and. 1 triplet 2 e and 3. 1 triplet 2 e and 3. Ta, taki, da, ta, di, taka, di, ta. Ta, taki, da, taki, di, ta. So we're borrowing these little triplet things. On a practical level, if you just say triplet, you'll get it. 1 triplet 3 and you got it, these little triplet things. We see these every so often too, not so much in choral music, but there's lots of triplets in choral music. Yeah, so that is rhythm. I would have to venture, a guess that as a choral director, frequently when singers run into issues reading, they think they're having issues reading pitch, but what they're actually having issues reading is rhythm. We frequently can hear and comprehend what our line goes like, but we don't know when to sing things. And so if I look over into the alto section or the soprano section and I see a lot of nervousness, I can almost guarantee you that it's frequently not what are the notes, it's when are the notes. So if that's you, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. I think, you know, that when I realized that was sort of a paradigm shift for me, because as singers, we live in this world of pitch, right? We sing melodies all the time. And when you're singing stuff, you know, it's not a big deal. But when you're staring at a page of music and you're trying to, you know, it's hard enough just to figure out where your part is written on the page, but you're trying to read the correct rhythms and the correct pitches and the correct words and the correct everything at the same time. That's really tough. That's why when I do rehearsals, I try and separate elements out so that we're only reading pitch and rhythm at the first time. And then later on, we can add the complication of the words and we can add the complication of dynamics and all these things. But even just pitch and rhythm at the same time is a lot, particularly for count singing. Although count singing helps in that, doesn't it? It helps you place things in the measure. It helps you to know where you are in the measure. And know where that goes. Now, why does that feel so horrible to certain singers, including myself, the first time I did that? Well, because it confines you to what's written on the page. It confines you to the correct notes and rhythms, which as a singer feels awfully limiting and very constrictive and sort of tyrannical and awful. But then when we get away from that and you find that you know the rhythms, well, then that's a glorious liberation, moment of liberation. It's like, oh, wow. I've sung the Hallelujah chorus for 78 years, but that's the first time I've sung all the right rhythms. Someone told me that after this year. I mean, they sang the Hallelujah chorus 55 years in a row, their whole life, and then they're like, but I was singing this rhythm wrong every time, and I didn't know it until this year when we count sang that thing. It's true. It's true. And sometimes I'll pick up stuff that I've done before and say, wow, I was not actually reading what was on the page. I was interpolating what I thought I was reading on the page. And certainly not always the same thing or the correct thing. How many of you find reading rhythm to be a challenge? It's certainly, for me, I think more of a challenge than reading pitch, because we can all hear a melody. I can play pitches on the piano for you, but I can't beam correct rhythms into your head the way I can pitch. Some of the hard things we encounter when we're reading rhythms, when we have a sustained note, like if we're in 4/4 time where there's 4 beats in a measure and there's a whole note, maintaining time in your head during those 4 beats that you're singing one note is tough, because frequently the choir will get to the end of one of these sustained notes and guess about when it ends and guess about when the next one begins. And you know, I am amazed very frequently at how good of guessers we are. And that's language straight from my teacher who taught me this method. She says, we can easily teach our choirs to guess really, really well. But what happens is you get to a certain level of music and guessing ain't good enough anymore. Last year, if you sang with us, the Foray Requiem and the Lords and Lux Aeterna, I think we all experienced that. In the Foray, it was much more intuitive because that music is much like everything else we sung in choir. But the Lordson, you couldn't guess. He sort of turned expectations on their head. So everything you thought was going to happen never happened the way you expected it to. And you can tell when you hear choirs if they really are aware of what's going on or if they're just getting it mostly right most of the time. There is a big difference between choirs that are mostly right most of the time and people who are really right most of the time, because they're able to read and discern their own mistakes and discern the content of the music without guessing. So I bet if you all worked really hard on mastering the idea of not what notes they are, but when they are, you would feel that your sight reading skills would be multiplied very quickly. Most choral music we sing is not tough in terms of rhythm or pitch. It's tough in other ways. But open any music you have near you and read the rhythms. A hymnal is a great resource because it's very simple. The music's pretty simple. But read not just the soprano part, the one you might be familiar with, but read the alto part, and not in terms of pitch, just in rhythm, just kind of on ba 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 or da 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 or whatever. See if you can get it right, and then see if you can sight read pitch with it. But that's a whole different thing, right? What are our thoughts about rhythm and rhythm reading? What have been some of your experiences with rhythms lately?
Josh, could you get a little bit more into the some of the more complex rhythm and time signatures and how to count them out, things like 9/8 and that sort of stuff?
Well, in terms of the way I sight read it using Takadimi, everything just comes back to tadi, tadi, Takadimi, or takida, takida, tabakididama. So 3/8, we would count bars of 3/8. Takida, 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 takida. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 6/8 would be counted takida, 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 which is the same, yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9/8. Takida, 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 takida. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What I like about Takadimi is that it breaks. You don't have to worry about these long measures of compound rhythms when all you have to worry about is each beat, the takida, takida, and how you're doing it. Measures of, you can have measures of 2/4, tadi, 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 tadi. And then if I give you a measure of 7/4, it's going to be tadi, 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 tadi. It's the same. It's the same. So it's kind of the same thing as before when we were talking about pitch. It's like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is do through do in any key. If it's G or A flat or A or B flat or B, it's always going to be, the major scale is always going to go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. And in terms of meter and time, it's always going to be either tadi or takida, simple or compound, and then variations of that. So if you can break it down to its requisite parts and see where the beats are and how the beats divide, instead of being overwhelmed by full measures of music, then you're on the right track.
So something like 5/4 would be takida, taki.
If it was really fast. Takida, tadi, takida, tadi, takida, tadi, takida, tadi. Yes, so you're combining one beat of 3 and one beat of 2. But usually 5/4 is more, if you're thinking in the beginning of Mars by Holst, takida ta, ta, tadi ta, takida ta, ta, tadi ta, takida ta. 1, 2, 3, triplet 2, 3, 4, and 5. Triplet 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5/8, measures of 5/8 in band music and orchestral music, we see that all the time. But yeah, that would be exactly it. Takida tadi, takida tadi, takida tadi.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you scroll down?
No, he's in control of that.
Yes, ma'am.
On the homework or the stuff that you gave us, on the last page, after the 3/4 scale example, there's a 6/8. It talks about duplets.
Right.
I got totally messed up on that.
So, you know what a triplet is.
Yes.
A duplet is the same exact thing, except that usually the duplet is breaking what usually in 6/8 would be divided into 3 beats. It's making you divide it in 2. So I'm going to share this page and count these for you so you can see it. Here we go. You should be able to see your handout now.
Yes.
Right? Ta, taki, da, ta, di, ta, ta, da, 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 ba, ba, ba. This one is 6/8. So 6/8 usually felt bum 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 ba-da-dum bum 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 1 2 3 1 2 1 1 2 3 1 2 1. You would expect in 6/8 to hear 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6, but what's written here is 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 2 4 2 4 6/8 6/8 6/8. So you're borrowing into this meter the 2 eighth notes that you would see in a simple meter up here.
So it's with a triplet, it counts for 1 beat. With a duplet, it counts for, I don't understand. There's aren't 6 beats in that first semester that I see.
Well, there's
first
2
measure.
beats though. There's 2 beats. 6/8
Okay.
is 2 beats of what would usually be 3 eighth notes in each quarter note. Okay. But here we have 2 beats usually divided into 2 beats of 3. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. But in this example, we've divided the second beat into 2. So 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2. So I'm going to clap the beat of that measure, and then I will patter with my mouth the divisions. 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2. We don't see this too often. Like I said, duplet borrowings like this are not very frequent. But you certainly know what a triplet is. In this bar of 3/4, you usually see 2 eighth notes per beat, but there's a triplet. It's the same thing, except instead of divisions of 3, you're dividing it into 2. One thing I hate about notation is that it frequently overcomplicates what our ears hear. And that's what we spent the first day on and second day on, talking about how the fact that you know what this is, your ears and your body, you know how to divide beats into 3 and 2. But you're looking at this like I have done before and been like, well, hold on a second. Whoa. Right, because notation is very imperfect. Notation is imperfect. Western art music is what it is because notation is imperfect. Because Schubert and Mahler and whoever, no matter how detailed they thought their notation was, there's still the matter of interpretation, right? How do we interpret these scores? What do these notes mean? What do they mean by this phrasing marks? What did he mean, or did she mean to slow the music down with that duplet or that triplet, or was it speeding up or whatever? I mean, it's because notation is not, there's not a whole lot of information, even when we overcomplicate it. So don't overthink it. And if we were in the classroom together, what I would have done is I would have had all of us tap the beat on our sternum, and then I would have had you patter back to me patterns. Matter of fact, we can do that if we all mute ourselves. Let's do that. I'm going to mute you all. I'm going to tap a beat so that you can hear my beat, okay? But don't look at me because it won't be in sync, right? I'm going to tap a beat. You try and tap on your sternum at the same rate as I do, and then I'm going to give you some things to repeat back to me, okay? And I'm going to trust that you can do it. You can tell me how well it goes later. Ready? Here we go. Here's time. Bum, 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 beam, bum. Bum, bum, bum beam bum. Bum beam bum, bum beam bum. Ta 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 dee ta. Ta 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 dee ta. Ta dee ta dee ta ta. Ta taki da ta ta. Taki da ta, taki da ta. Taki da ta, ta dee ta. Get those rhythms back pretty well? Yeah. So you can feel them, right? We're musicians. We've been doing this a long time. Some of you have been singing in choirs and making music longer than I've been alive, which means that you have all that experience, okay? You know this. You spent your whole childhood in your car, in your parents' car, listening to music. You spent so many years in church or in your community making music. You have all of that experience. Don't think that that does not make a difference, okay? And any amount of training you have, even if it's bad training, okay, it's still experiential. So it means you have the experience of this stuff. And I was watching you in the videos. I saw all of you pattering these rhythms back to me, which means you can comprehend what you hear. Now what you have to do is try and attach what you see to what you already hear. If you try and separate those things, or if you define your musicianship in terms of what you can read, you're denying yourself all of the experience that you have speaking this language and living this language of music. So don't do that. But try and attach what you read and what you see to what you already feel and know and hear. Honestly, that would be much easier in a classroom where you could really, I could see you and hear you, and you as a chorus could chorus those things back to me. And you could experience those rhythms in those ways for that, in that moment. But I can see that all of you are doing it, so don't worry. Don't worry. I did some of those triplet and duple divisions there, Marge. Did you feel that? Taki da tadi, taki da tadi, right? You can feel the difference. I saw you doing that. Rhythm, it's a horrible bane sometimes, but if you can break each measure down into its little parts, then you can be strong whenever you're singing. An excellent time in choir rehearsals to do this is when other sections are doing stuff. So when I go and work with the altos, I wish I saw all the sopranos bury their head in their score and go back to that one measure and sort out those rhythms, so that when we went back and did it, they could do that. And basses and tenors, they'll do the same thing, and altos, you too. This is a great thing to do when you have a moment to say, oh my gosh, okay, they're working on that. I'm going to go back to this measure and I'm going to see, what did I do here, and why did the composer write duple borrowings into 6/8? Why is he so stupid? I don't know, but we have to sing it, so let's figure it out, right? That's what we should be doing all the time. That's also something you can do while we're not singing in choirs. Take out scores of stuff you're familiar with and look for these little things that you can recognize now in your scores and decode them like that. Okay, how do we feel about rhythm? Looks like you're all like, yes, rhythm, okay. Don't avoid things that you're not good at, okay? When you're practicing and when you're studying, start with things that you know you're weak in. And then after that, go back and have fun doing everything you're good at. But start when you have the energy on things that you need to know more about, which for most of us is how to decode these rhythms. And then we'll all be in good shape. Our next meeting, which is not next week, it is, let's see, the 29th, which is Wednesday night. I'm going to bring some music, and I'll display the music up here, and we'll take it apart bit by bit. And the title of this class, which is Step by Step, Putting It Together, is a line from a Stephen Sondheim song. It's bit by bit, putting it together. That's exactly what we'll be doing. We'll be bit by bit taking it apart, and then we'll be bit by bit putting it back together. And it'll probably be hymns or something like that, something really easy for you to see and comprehend. And we'll take it apart. Pitch first, then rhythm, and then we'll look at how it all combines, and that should get you on the path to more and more literacy as we go. Any questions? Anyone feeling weak in a particular area that I can get you some supplementary material in?
Rhythm.
In terms of reading those rhythms
Yes.
or hearing them?
Hearing them, I guess.
Hearing and seeing. Basically attaching sound to symbol.
Yes.
Because I can tell that you hear them and feel them in your body. So you just want to sound to symbol rhythm. You got it.
I want more on Takademi. Guess I could look it up.
Takademi.
Probably online somewhere, but you probably have something that's good source.
Takademi, the nature of that technique is that it's very ensemble oriented and sort of experiential. So we get better at Takademi by doing it a whole lot. So, you know, when my choir kids in the high school, we would do Takademi every day, and they just naturally became masters of that thing. But what is important is that you see divisions of the beat. So do you see, Rhonda, that you can see how beats are divided and things like that?
But I'd be afraid of trying to convert whatever I'm looking at into it. If somebody said, hey, do this, you know, do it and do Takademi on this score, I'm not sure I can do that.
Right. Sight reading then. You're talking about, I know what all this is, but I'm nervous about reading it cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Just do it, I guess, right?
Yeah, you're doing it. What I did with my kids too, I say my kids because, you know, the experience in a classroom with that daily application of these things is kind of where I'm going with how it should be. I would, we were learning music, when I was teaching them music, I would, at the beginning of the rehearsal, before they'd even seen the music, I would make them repeat back to me patterns that they would see in the music. So I'm not talking about teaching them by rote. You know, so if we were learning, let me think. Someone name a piece of music we've done lately, because my mind's going blank. How about, oh my gosh, really?
What about their Down in the River to Pray?
Okay. Down in the river to pray. I would at the beginning of the rehearsal have gone, okay, everyone tap the beat, tap, 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 tap. Ta di mi taka di ta. Ta di mi taka di ta. Taka di mi ta di ta ta. Taka di mi ta di ta ta. So that by the time we got into the rehearsal and they were saying, everything about that good old way, they had already experienced that rhythm earlier in the rehearsal in their warm-up. So when they go to reading it, they've already heard it and seen it and pattered it back to me far before they're actually trying to sight read music.
So
that is why sight reading is so tough, because we frequently are looking at something for the first time. But if you learn music in terms of patterns and little constructive blocks, you know, the solfege little things that I give you, that you'll see those little figures pop up in music everywhere. And if you know what do, mi, so, mi, do is as a pattern, when you see it in music, you'll instantly recognize it and you'll know how it goes. So that's what we're going to be talking about later in the week on Wednesday, is how do we break things down into patterns and then rehearse patterns instead of rehearsing music, so that no matter what piece you pick up, you're building upon skills that you've learned every single piece you sing, so that by the time you've sung 100 pieces in 10 years, you really have 100 pieces worth of experience and you haven't had to recreate the wheel every time you learn a new piece of music. Doesn't that reflect how we often feel in choir? It's like, you know, especially my church choir. When I first got to my church, they were just, every time they learned a piece of music, it was a whole new struggle, you know. But then after a while, when you relate things to each other, they're like, oh yeah, this is like that one piece we did. Yes, it's exactly like that one piece we did. So don't overthink it. It's the same thing. And this, my church choir now cooks through 6 or 7 new pieces in one evening. And, you know, clearly we're not singing the 4A Requiem in church, so it's not that hard. But, you know, If it's not that hard, then we should be able to cook through 20 pieces in 1 week, right? That's the ideal church music. This is how Bach's choir, would learn a new Bach cantata every week, because Bach's music, once you sing one of them, you kind of have the idea about the others, right? Even in his day. So this all relates back to our initial conversation at the beginning of the month about literacy and how it all needs to be a language we learn and become fluent in, not recreating the wheel and starting from square one every single time we pick up a new piece of music. Any other questions? Okay, excellent. I will see you all Wednesday evening. Have a wonderful night. If you're in the literature course, just